Today I want to discuss Islam, and I want to discuss what's going on in the Middle East and Gaza. To the best of my extent, that is. To the best of my knowledge on the subject. The one thing that I'll say about the narrative in the Middle East and Islam, as far as the Associated Press is concerned, the narrative on Islam and the genocide in Gaza, at least that's being stated for what it is. There's kind of like a candy-coated version of that from the AP, where the AP just admits that there is an atrocity happening, and then there's a more honest version of that from the AP, that there is actually a genocide occurring in Gaza. I would just not like to note that historically, I've noticed this from studying centuries of world history for decades of my life. Historically, when there is a global war happening, when there is a giant militarized industrial complex operation, historically, history denotes that most of the time while it's happening, most people generally never really know the truth until later. So history recounts that in these type of situations where there's this type of mass warfare, this type of generated propaganda, where there is this type of very, very serious world stage activity, history generally recounts that the official narrative of what will be documented as happening will not actually be told to the common person probably a decade or 2 decades later. Now, I don't think this is a hard sell. Hey, Ravi, is that how I pronounce it? I got the last part. Ravi Kumar. How you doing? I don't think it's a hard sell for most people to think about their knowledge of world history, even if it's only limited, and understand that probably in their own lifetime, things that have been told to them, more information has come out later that generally either changed people's perspective or at the very least enlightened them to something that was happening that was not presented to them at the initial onset of the turmoil. I speak of Gaza and the Middle East. Don't like what's going on there at all, obviously, right? I'm not a pro-genocide person. I don't think Christian Zionists are, that secular version of Israel is in the good on this one. I figured I'd bring it up, man. I just one guy in the middle of the wilderness. But yeah, I don't think. I'm just going off of what I know of history. During World War I, the narrative shifted quite a lot after the war was over. The same with World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Afghanistan. The narratives, it's like they give you the rest of the information. The militarized industrial complex gives you the rest of the information after they think it's not going to matter historically. But they don't give it to you all at once. I think even if the militarized industrial complex thought that it would be beneficial to give the world all the truth at once, I don't think that it would be within their intelligence set to do it. I just think they're so, for the lack of a better term, trained, like just centuries of warfare trained to never divulge the full hand. You know what I mean? Until later, that is. It can actually be a good history. I love world history. It is probably one of my favorite subjects. But these days, it seems like, people, a lot of people don't want to hear world history, so I have to be very careful about who I tell it to, because I want to make sure that they're actually wanting to know, because in order to learn, you got to want to know. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't seem like they want to know anything else. How you doing, Gail? Hi, Olivia. I like your name. So I don't presume to know what the official narrative on Gaza will be in the long run. I don't presume to know. I only iterate that I believe more information will probably come out a decade later that will probably be slightly contrary to the narrative, if not more. School systems. Well, both. I do agree that, school system history is very, very contrived and controlled. But you have to start somewhere. You know what I mean? A lot of the history that people are taught in the public school system is a lot of the history that most people already know. So it's kind of it's common ground for people to know that rudimentary, basic history. So I'm okay with people learning that as opposed to nothing. But there is a lot of, identity politics that kind of at the baseline elementary level seems to hijack people's sense of awareness and identity before they know what hits them. And then the bad part of that is they don't want to learn anymore. Once they have found what it is they believe is the truth of world history, a lot of people don't deviate. So there is a bit of an indoctrination process there with the public schools. I agree. Well, Olivia, it was very nice seeing you. Thanks for coming in here and saying hello. Coming online and saying hello to me. I hope you have a good evening, or whatever time it is, wherever you're at. Another thing I wanted to point out, and this probably is not going to be popular, but historically, another thing that I've noticed a pattern in world history is when you have these type of numbers, these very, very large, scary numbers, like with what's going on in Gaza. Sometimes the people that are the victims are often the aggressors, according to history. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying, like, thanks so much. One thing that I wanted to call to your attention is that the Associated Press's spin on Gaza doesn't look very organic. Now, a lot of people have been bringing this up for a long time now, so this is nothing new. But for a mass genocide, very real, by the way, I'm not denying it. It just, the way the AP is covering it, the optics don't look good. Does that make sense? I don't think the optics, the way that they're doing it, is as professional as they believe they're doing. And this seems to be from all walks of the political spectrum kind of picking up on this.